It was just another regular Monday morning when Alia, a sharp, fiery young lawyer in her mid-20s, barged into the glossy marble-floored lobby of one of the city's biggest corporate buildings. Her heels clicked with purpose. Her eyes were narrowed with rage, and her fist clutched a file so tight the edges had curled. She had one goal: to expose the man who, according to her client's claims, had made inappropriate advances in a professional setting. Her jaw was tight, and her voice trembled, not out of fear but fury. Everyone in the lobby turned to look at her. She didn't care. She was done being polite. After a week of unanswered emails, avoided calls, and a silenced HR department, she had decided to take matters into her own hands. Her client, a junior intern, had been wronged, and if no one else would listen, she would confront the so-called CEO herself. The man her client had described sounded arrogant, dismissive, and from the way the company was avoiding the issue, untouchable. But Alia wasn't the kind to be intimidated by power suits and glass doors. She stormed past the reception, ignoring the assistant calling out behind her, and pushed open the large wooden door at the end of the hallway without knocking. Inside, a man stood by the window, sipping his coffee, his back turned to her. "You should be ashamed of yourself," she shouted, her voice echoing through the high-ceilinged room. "How dare you use your position to harass someone? You're nothing but a pervert in a suit." The man slowly turned around, eyebrows raised in confusion. Cup paused mid-air. He didn't look startled, just amused, calm. That only made her angrier. "Excuse me," he said, voice low and steady. He looked far too composed for someone being accused of such a thing. Alia, still fuming, threw the file on his desk. "Don't act innocent. All the evidence is in there. Your intern trusted you. And you made her feel unsafe in a place that was supposed to help her grow. You're a disgrace to your position." For a long second, silence filled the room. And then he calmly set his coffee down and picked up the file, flipping through it without a word. After a beat, he looked up, one brow arched. "I think there's been a mistake," he said, lips twitching slightly at the corners. "I'm not Mr. Shan Malik, the CEO. I'm his younger brother, Rayan Malik. I run the investment wing. This is his office. Yes, but he's away on a business trip. I'm just filling in today. But thank you for that." Extremely passionate speech. The color drained from Alia's face. She stood frozen, blinking. The words, "I'm not the CEO," rang in her ears over and over. She had just called the wrong man a pervert, loudly, in his office, in front of his entire staff. She had practically accused the wrong Malik brother of misconduct. I'm so sorry," she stammered, suddenly aware of the stunned silence outside the open office door. Her face turned a deep shade of crimson. "I thought my client told me." Rayan raised a hand, still half smiling. "It's all right. You were defending someone. That's rare to see, and kind of impressive, honestly." Alia's eyes widened. Was he complimenting her? "I'll have security walk you out," he added with a teasing smile. "Not because you're in trouble, but I think they're a bit shocked you just called the CEO a pervert out loud. Might want to avoid another viral TikTok moment." Muttered a half-hearted "thank you" and turned to leave, practically sprinting toward the elevator, mortified. What had she just done? Her entire legal career could have been over in 30 seconds. But just as she reached the lobby, an older woman in an elegant blue sari stopped her. "Excuse me," the woman said kindly. "You're the young lady who just yelled at Rayan, aren't you?" Alia froze, ready to face the worst. "Yes, ma'am," she said, bracing herself. To her surprise, the woman smiled, Good, she replied. I liked that. You've got fire. That boy needs someone to challenge him. Aaliyah blinked. Who was this woman? I'm Nafisa Malik, she said warmly. Rayyan's mother. The air felt like it left Aaliyah's lungs. I've been trying to find a decent woman to knock some sense into my son, Nafisa said with a mischievous glint in her eyes. Would you like to join me for tea sometime? I think we have a lot to talk about. Aaliyah had no idea how this morning had turned. From a legal confrontation to an impromptu tea invitation from the CEO's mother. She didn't even know what to say. Was this a joke, a test, or just fate with a strange sense of humor? As she stood there, caught between embarrassment and confusion, she noticed Rayyan watching the whole exchange from a distance. Arms crossed, smirking like this was the most entertaining thing that had happened to him all year. She didn't know it yet, but that chaotic morning was only the beginning of something far more complicated, because the woman she thought she had offended, Rayyan's mother, had just taken a liking to her. And when Nafisa Malik made up her mind about someone, there was no going back. And Rayyan, he wasn't done teasing her just yet. But what happens when the woman who stormed into the wrong office ends up being the one everyone in that office can't stop talking about, especially the man she accidentally accused? That's where everything starts to change. Aaliyah couldn't stop thinking about that morning. The way her voice had echoed off those office walls, the stunned faces peeking from behind glass panels, and most of all, the strange smile on Rayyan's face. She had made a complete mess, and yet somehow, things hadn't blown up. In fact, the CEO's mother had invited her for tea. Who does that? She hadn't planned to accept the invitation. Honestly, she thought Nafisa Malik might forget. But 2 days later, a sleek black car showed up outside her law firm, with a driver holding a card that simply read, "Waiting for you, Nafisa." Aaliyah sat in the car nervously, adjusting her scarf, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. The last thing she expected was to arrive at a quiet, elegant home, filled with sunlight and the smell of freshly baked naan katai. Nafisa greeted her like an old friend. No judgment, no awkwardness, just warmth. They talked about everything: law, family, work, even her childhood in Lucknow. Nafisa listened closely, sipping chai as though she had all the time in the world. Then, suddenly, in the middle of a story about Aliyah's law school days, Nafisa smiled and said, "You remind me of myself when I was your age." Aaliyah was taken aback. "Me? Yes." Nafisa nodded. "Except I didn't have the courage to yell at powerful men in their offices. That kind of fire, it's rare. And it's needed." It wasn't until later that Aaliyah realized Nafisa hadn't invited her just for conversation. She was observing her, weighing something. She asked about Aliyah's family, whether she lived alone, and if she had time to meet again. The tone was casual, but there was a deeper intention behind the questions. Back at the office, things took a strange turn. Rayyan started showing up more often, casually leaning against the reception desk, pretending to read reports, striking up conversations with Alia in the break room when she came in for client meetings. He was annoyingly charming, always, throwing little comments that made her blush or glare. She tried to ignore him, but he was persistent. "You always barge into rooms like that," he teased one afternoon. "Only when I think there's a pervert inside," she shot back. He laughed. "Good to know. I'll keep my doors locked." It would have been easier if he was just a flirt, but he wasn't. Rayyan was smart, painfully smart, and good at reading people. He started asking her real questions about her cases, her values, her beliefs. He even started referring small legal work to her firm. claiming they needed new blood. Aaliyah wasn't sure whether he was helping or testing her. But things started getting complicated when Nafisa began insisting that Aaliyah attend some of the Malik family events. "Just show your face," she'd say, handing her an invite. "It's good to network." At first, Aaliyah thought it was harmless, until whispers started following her. At one dinner party, a woman leaned over and said, "So, are you the girl Nafisa is choosing for Rayyan?" Aaliyah nearly choked on her drink. "No, I'm a lawyer," the woman laughed. "Sure, dear, you just keep thinking that." It turned out Nafisa had started planting seeds. Subtle suggestions to family friends that she had found someone strong for her son. Rayyan, for his part, seemed more amused than surprised. One evening, as they stood under the fairy lights at a charity event, he said softly, "You know she's matchmaking, right?" "I'm aware," Aaliyah muttered, trying to focus on her drink. He looked at her carefully. "And you're okay with it?" She didn't answer, because the truth was, she didn't know. Aaliyah had never imagined herself in this kind of story, being pushed toward a man she barely knew, by his mother of all people. But Rayyan wasn't just any man. He listened when she spoke. He challenged her. And slowly, the space between them was filling with something unspoken. But not everyone was happy. Shan Malik, the real CEO and Rayyan's older brother, returned from his trip and didn't take kindly to the growing attention Aaliyah was getting. He was sharp, ambitious, and deeply protective of the company image. When he found out about Aaliyah's accidental outburst and her growing closeness with their family, he called her in for a private meeting. "You think yelling at executives and then cozying up to their families is how legal careers are built?" he asked coldly. Aaliyah kept her voice steady. "I didn't cozy up to anyone. Your mother invited me. I didn't ask for this." "You sure?" He narrowed his eyes. "Because right now it looks like you're playing two roles. Advocate and opportunist." That stung. More than she expected. Aaliyah walked out of that meeting with her chest tight. She didn't need anyone to defend her integrity, but the doubts had been planted. That same evening, she got a call. Her original client, the intern who had accused the company of misconduct, had suddenly dropped the case. No warning, no explanation, just vanished. Confused and uneasy, Aaliyah tried reaching out, only to find the girl had quit and left town. Rumors were swirling that the intern had been offered a quiet settlement. Hush money. Aaliyah's instincts flared, and suddenly, everything she thought was under control began to unravel. Had she walked into a trap? Was she being distracted by a charming face and a powerful family, while something darker was being buried beneath the surface? Rayyan swore he had nothing to do with it. "I told you I admired your fire, remember? I meant it. I wouldn't try to extinguish it." But now Aaliyah wasn't sure who to trust. Not Shan. Not the company. Maybe not even Rayyan. One night, she returned home to find a sealed envelope slid under her door. No sender name, just a note. Inside, "Be careful who you let close. The truth is messier than it seems." And just like that, everything changed. Because what started as a bold mistake had turned into something much bigger. And Aaliyah was about to find out, some officers hide more than just paperwork. Some secrets don't want to stay buried, and someone was trying very hard to make sure she stopped digging. But Aaliyah, she had just begun. Aaliyah stared at the note for a long time, her fingers gripping the paper tightly. It wasn't just a warning, it was a line being drawn. Someone didn't want her to know the truth, and that only pushed her further. Over the next few days, Aaliyah quietly started her own digging. She didn't tell Rayyan. She didn't even tell her best friend. She just followed the faint traces left behind by the intern who had started all this. A deleted email here, a disconnected phone number there, but Alia had been trained to find cracks in even the most polished walls. And slowly, she pieced together something that shook her to the core. The intern, Sarah, had filed more than just a complaint. She had screenshots, voice recordings, and even surveillance footage. And before she vanished, she had stored them on a cloud folder with access granted to one email, Alia's. When Alia opened that folder, she felt her stomach drop. There it was, proof of an actual incident involving a senior staff member. But what hit harder was the voice in the background. Of one clip, Shan Malik, speaking coldly, trying to silence the girl with threats of ruining her career. It wasn't just hush money, it was intimidation. Now everything made sense. The quick case withdrawal, the sudden offer of partnership deals for Alia, the charm, the invites, the distractions. They hadn't just been about matchmaking. They were damage control. And Rayyan, did he know? Alia confronted him, straight to the point. Did you know what your brother did? Did you know he tried to bury this? Rayyan looked stunned. No, I didn't. Alia, I swear. If I had known. His voice cracked with something real. Hurt. Maybe shame. My brother, he's always protected the company, even if it meant crossing lines. But this is criminal. She believed him. But belief wasn't enough. Truth needed action. Alia took the case to court, this time, not as a quiet background lawyer, but as the lead counsel. The media caught on quickly. Young lawyer takes on CEO in harassment cover-up case. Her face was suddenly everywhere. News channels, blogs, YouTube thumbnails. The girl who once barged into an office shouting pervert was now the face of justice. The court battle was messy. Shan tried every trick in the book. Legal threats, character attacks, even an attempt to paint Alia as emotionally unstable. But she didn't waver. Rayyan, to everyone's surprise, stepped forward as a witness. He testified against his own brother. That moment changed everything. In the end, the court ruled in favor of the victim. Shan Malik was removed from his position, fined heavily, and faced further investigation. The company released a public apology, and Nafisa, proud but silent, held Alia's hand outside the courtroom, tears in her eyes. I didn't bring you into our lives for this, she whispered. But maybe. This was exactly what we needed. Alia had become more than just a lawyer. She had become a voice for those who were always too scared to speak. And though she had never planned it, her story had inspired thousands. Rayyan stepped back from the company, started a foundation for workplace ethics with Alia, and for the first time, their connection wasn't about forced meetings or matchmaking games. It was about shared values, real respect, and something growing slowly, quietly, between two very different people, brought together by one strange, stormy day. Alia still remembered that moment. She had burst into the office, full of anger and mistaken assumptions. She had called the wrong man a pervert, but maybe the mistake had led her to the right fight, the right path, and maybe, just maybe, the right person. Because sometimes life doesn't follow the rules. Sometimes the messiest stories turn into the most powerful ones. And sometimes a loud, fearless girl becomes exactly what a broken system needed. Not just a lawyer, a change maker.